Hi, I'm Neil Lawrence, transformational leadership, HR, and neurodiversity coach. And I'm really, really pleased to be taking 10 minutes out of my day to speak to Dr. Delroy Hall. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, I'm Delroy Hall, based in Sheffield, UK. I think that's the only Sheffield on the planet, but Sheffield, UK. My area is a psychotherapist for over 30 years, leadership and trainer, and in conversation with Neil Lawrence to discuss a really interesting topic, which he's about to share.
Yeah, thank you, Delroy. So I think we're in the process of what I call emerging. There's something happening for both of us around. So we did a workshop a couple of weeks ago that was about transition, change, and loss, and we came out of that with thinking about senior leaders, CEOs, and community leaders. As I remember, Delroy, do you want to add something to that? Is that?
Yeah, I think I've been interested in the whole thing around moral injury and the
Mm.
impact on individuals. But yeah, so we had this kind of really organic conversation. And after this organic conversation about people in leadership, whether it be corporate, charity, third sector, religious, spiritual, there was a question that kind of came up for us, which I want to share with you.
Yeah, and that question is, what's keeping you awake at night?
Yep.
And I guess we started to really think about it from those people who are carrying enormous amounts of responsibility in really important jobs. I was going to say highly paid jobs, but not necessarily.
Mm.
Um, with a feeling often of feeling isolated, having to make important decisions, some of which don't sit well, and the cost of their ability to sleep. So we kind of started from that.
Yeah, and I shared with Neil that I remember one of my leadership positions, I was in a kind of difficult spot financially. It wasn't well paid either. I had lots of responsibility, but it was poorly paid. And my wife knows that when I might head the pillow at night, I go straight to sleep. But for this period of time, I just couldn't sleep. And like I guess a lot of men, I didn't share it with her. I shared it with somebody else. I had a supervisor, but or she knew that I was sleeping at night, but I wasn't. I was worried over meeting the bills and so forth. So yeah, this question is really germane. I suspect it's happening to thousands of people around the country. What is keeping you up at night for men and women as well?
I think that's a really prescient question, especially bringing the transition and loss stuff into it that we were thinking about since COVID and since the huge global change. Although it didn't happen overnight, we know, but it's been glaring us in the face since the pandemic. With so many companies and so many organisations in real periods of transitional crisis about getting staff and sticking to their mission. So I guess I'm really interested in how people who are at the top get to reach out, especially if they're in a situation of feeling isolated and having no one to talk to. So maybe be helpful just to give a couple of minutes for both of us to share some of our ideas around reaching out, particularly when things start touching into affecting mental health or well-being or spiritual well-being, and really affecting a dip, and those leaders having to turn up day after day after day and lead the way.
Yeah, and I would like to just add something else to it as a conversation I was having with somebody who's a organizational leader. And he's made this really important point that individuals can be having all the coaching possible, but it's about results, targets, outcomes, so forth, but they still can't sleep at night.
Mm.
So they're in this position driven to achieve results, having the coaching, having the career support, but still can't sleep at night, keep them awake, and they don't share that with their coach because it's about results, so forth and so forth and so forth. It's really important to bring that out there, I think.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It makes me think about the importance of emotional connection, which for me is something that's really missing at the moment. Compassion is the word that I use for it, and I think you know that my kind of mantra on LinkedIn all the time is to that we can do less, we can plan less, and I guess bizarrely for what we're talking about, be less as well.
Mm.
I guess what I mean by that is not necessarily change the leadership position you have, but we hold on to our job titles and our jobs as if they are us, and we hold on to them very, very tightly at the expense, I think, of growing as people and giving ourselves a break. So knowing that who we are or what we do as a job doesn't define everything about us, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, and as we kind of segue into some tips in terms of helping us, my attention is drawn to some research done by Harvard University Business School. They interviewed retired CEOs, and what came up very often was CEOs wish they'd spent more time in self-reflection. They realized they would have been better leaders, better husbands, better fathers, better human beings. But whilst in post, they were driven by results, outcomes, and so forth and so forth, the profitability of the organization, which is really important. We do, both of us recognize that. But they realized that the reflection that they should have done, they didn't do, that would have helped them. And I suspect some of those during their time had some sleepless nights as well. So, yeah, let's have some tips maybe. How we can do that.
Yeah, and I guess from me, I think maybe this isn't so much a tip as a whole way of being, but I think probably we're using our heads too much, and there's lots of research being done at the moment about gut intelligence. So the whole thing about trusting our guts, but there's a lot of noise in our heads, and often very differing views, and often views that aren't necessarily helpful, that either we're hanging on to from our own past where we're beating ourselves up, or from the system that we've grown up into that may not have given us the best ideas, even though it feels like we do. So a couple of things on that, I think. First of all, learning to trust the gut and to go through a process of start just like giving time just to let things emerge rather than jumping on an answer reactively, I think can be really helpful. But if that feels like too hard to swallow, as I'm sure it does, that's like maybe a year or two of coaching. I'm not poaching or asking, but separately from that, I think there are tips. There's really easy wins, like can you take 3 things off your to-do list? Can you end a day or a night knowing there's things you haven't done? Look at yourself in the face and know that you've done the best you can on that particular night in order to close down whatever is happening. Can you build in a buffer of even just 10-15 minutes between transitioning from work mode into, even if you've only got 2 hours that night, into kind of private mode? I think all those kind of little things could be starting points, but certainly getting to know the gut better is the longer term solution.
Yeah, and one of the things I've said, so when I do training, one of the first questions I ask, so for example, if I'm doing training 10 to 1, the first question I'll ask is, how many of you got a meeting at 1 o'clock? Invariably, loads of people put their hands up. Well, I don't do my training from 10 to 1. I'll do it from 10 till 12:30, giving people a chance to get a cup of coffee, get something to eat, and have a kind of, so the brain can relax before they get into the next thing. So sometimes it is a responsibility that we have, but sometimes during the day, we don't give ourselves enough break or rest before we move on to the next thing. Simple as it is, but it really, one, people appreciate it, but also it gives people a bit of breathing room. It gives you a bit of breathing room before you go on to the next thing.
I love that. I was just thinking this morning, the phrase that I think needs to be eradicated from most of our vocabularies is back to back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's shocking. Yeah, it's because normally, to be honest, in real life, we wouldn't do back-to-back meetings. Generally speaking, we'd have time for break and so forth. But somehow, with this online world, it's as though we can just be sat in front of this thing, and sometimes even in terms of having the cuppa, we're drinking it whilst we're moving to the next meeting. We haven't given ourselves time to move, get something down us, have a break, get our brains to recover, rest before we move on to the next thing. So that meeting is not good.
Yeah. And certainly for the neurodiverse leaders that I'm working with, for example, neurodivergent leaders that I'm working with, or neurodiverse, I see quite a lot of fatigue. I'm including myself in this, from being present on a call for long periods of time, because having to focus so much energy on a screen and think about how my face is responding is that can be really exhausting. So thinking about all of this Daryl, it's making me want to maybe have another conversation with you at a different point about what some of the, I don't know, I'm going to use this word and see what you think, what some of the demons are that people sometimes are wrestling with. Senior leaders and executives are wrestling, community leaders are wrestling with at night time. Maybe we can do a follow up that kind of goes into that a little bit. What do you think?
Your word demon may seem a bit harsh in a secular society. However, the truth of the matter is that leadership is a lonely experience. That's the truth of the matter. And there may be things that we are wrestling with which we daren't share with someone, but we need to. So I think your word demon is absolutely appropriate. And it could be, there may be somebody scrolling, have seen this, and what you're wrestling with may be a demon, but you maybe need to be able to share that in a space where you don't feel judged or condemned. And you'll possibly find it's not a demon, but by the mere fact you've been holding on to it for so long, and it's almost terrorizing you. In a sense, you've morphed it into something that it really isn't. So I think the idea of those inner demons is absolutely spot on.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, let's aim to do that. And I know you and I are also in conversation about how to develop some of this work and offer something, and reach out to people at the moment that are finding it hard to be to kind of reach out to others. So that's very much on our mind. Yeah.
And anyone who's watching or listening, feel free to reach out to either of us. We're on LinkedIn. Reach out to either of us. We'd be certainly good to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, definitely. Daryl, lovely speaking to you as always.
And you, Neil.
Thank you. Part 2 to come.
Indeed. Looking forward to it already. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.